it doesn't stop at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m.
No.
It stops when you have met that when that transformation happens.
Yes.
Whether that's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 11 p.m., you know, that's a long day.
Yeah. I coached most of them.
Yes, you have. And so that's one thing that I'm just going to like kind of allude to is it's not time-based, it's outcome-based.
Yes.
And it's that's a transformation.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the TPM Show. Hey, look guys, have you ever been in that situation where you're just wondering if there's a way out? You feel like you're in a dark tunnel. As one guy described it to me, he's like, Doug, I just feel like I have this het wool blanket on me, a wet one, and it's just weighing me down. And then have you ever wondered what it's like on the other side of that, where you actually get to face a man who is a man you've only dreamed of? A man that's only there with a relationship you ever dreamed of. Well, today's guest has had both of those situations. And we're going to talk about how he's done it, how he's turned things around and 180'd multiple areas of his life in a relatively short period of time. So stick around so you guys know success leaves clues. And you're definitely going to get a lot of those clues from my guest today. Jason, thanks for being back, buddy.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. You're at TPM Ranch. You flew out here yesterday. It was great to have you for lunch. And then I had a kids' baseball game yesterday. I got one again today. We've done some great recordings on an area that you're an absolute expert in, which is going to be longevity, peptides, optimizing health is maybe a general brushstroke. And one of the things that we were talking about kind of off the microphone, we're talking about our friends and people we know outside of the movement who haven't quite done the work. And I thought it'd be good to let other men know kind of how you've done it. How did you get here today, the man that's sitting on the couch?
I guess starting from childhood, I would say I was extremely shy. I suppressed emotions. I did not learn vulnerability. I didn't learn vulnerability from an aspect of how to be vulnerable and how to also see vulnerability in others as a good thing. You know, it was always, you know, boys don't cry, you know, so real men don't cry, whatever. And what I've learned with TPM is quite the opposite. Real men cry.
Yep.
They cry a lot, you know, and I love it because it's a release.
Yes.
And it's a release that we need to have as humans. So otherwise we suppress it and you'll end up like me on the dark side of my story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, when you talk about vulnerability, the thing I like to bring up to a lot of men is being vulnerable isn't a sign of weakness. Like that's what I kind of thought it was. Yeah. And then I started meeting so many powerful, strong men who would be vulnerable because they were so strong. Right? That allowed them to be vulnerable, right? Being vulnerable is like, hey, I'll open up who I really am and you have the opportunity to attack me, but I still have the courage to be here, right? And that's something I think is a testament. So let's fast forward a little bit to, you know, you're a business owner, right? Yeah. You have an IT company. You're married. How long have you been married for? Pop quiz.
20 years.
Okay.
And September will be 21.
Awesome, man. Congratulations. Yeah. Has marriage always been easy?
No. And the hard thing about that saying 20 was our 20-year anniversary was a rough time.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah. And I think all men can recognize that, right? The ebbs and flows of marriage, the dulls, the drolls, and the waiting, right? Is it going to get better? And I think most guys have this idea of, well, I'll just wait. You know, next week, next month will be better. I'll just put my head down and bury myself in work. Right. What was your story?
In relation to my marriage with Shannon, who I admire her so much. I'm almost going to get teary-eyed here, knowing where we're at now compared to where we've been. She's a beautiful spirit, beautiful woman. And I'd say the early years of our marriage we were doomed for failure due to life events that, her losing her mom to cancer, us never having that chance to mature as a couple, and add to that two babies in the span of just 2.5 years through that same trial. Add to that building a home at the wrong time, right before the housing crisis. Add to that the stress of being a one-man band business owner, where I did everything. I had no employees at the time, and I was young, and I didn't know how to express emotions. I didn't know how to, when Shannon would come to me with, a whirlwind of emotions, I would take it as like no, like this is scary.
Yeah.
This is scary. Like, I don't know how to handle this, and so that cumulative, I often use the word synergy from health optimization, but the opposite of that, the cumulative of all this hard stresses and hard issues, which developed into my health crisis from on the outside, but it started with a health crisis on the inside, and that started with emotional suppression. And I just wasn't there for her. I wasn't there for her in the way she needed me to be as a man, as a husband. So going through that, it built resentment on both sides. Here I am, I've got these health issues, I've got this chronic pain, and yet, I'm sleeping 3 hours a night on medications, and I couldn't, even if I knew how to at that point, when things were already so bad, even if I didn't have those issues, I still didn't have the tools, let alone combining that with these challenges that I was dealing with. But I would say the emotional pain through those years that I went through was as bad as the nerve pain and physical pain was. The emotional pain was way worse.
Yeah.
Way worse. And it just fed into the physical pain. And the amount of emotional pain that she was in, and add to that the fact that, the supposed to be most important person in her life, wasn't able to be there emotionally for her, just bred resentment.
Yeah.
That just accumulated over years, many years. And I think that happens with a lot of men. Mm-hmm. I think it does. I think it leads to divorce a lot. And men think that, we weren't just compatible.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
We just couldn't work. Right. But in knowing what I know now and seeing other men on the outside, living from outside in, not inside out, I do believe that probably 3 out of 4 marriages don't have to end in divorce. You love each other. That love should grow. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't dim. But for most couples, I would say it naturally does dim because we don't have the tools, we don't have the knowledge, and if you just know how to understand your wife, and their feelings and their emotions, then that goes miles. And you being able to do that, you feel better too.
100%. My wife, who coaches women, as you know, often tells me, like, for women, having that emotional connection is oxygen for her, right? And she told me, like, when I didn't know how to respond in a way that worked for her to her emotions, like being there for her, she felt unsafe, right? And then she felt like she was suffocating within the relationship. She was like, I loved you so much, but I felt I was suffocating. And I grew up in a family with all boys, so like the way I connected was making jokes and sarcasm. For you and Shannon, when you guys were going through this, you got young kids, who need your attention. They need her, they need you. You got a business you're trying to grow. You're trying to be the provider, the protector of the family, do what you think's best. And now, from her point of view, she's home with the kids, I'm guessing, right? All day. So not having adult conversations. And then you come around and you're like, hey, I'm not available for all of this turmoil, basically, right? That's how I would interpret it. What do we think was going on for her during this time?
She's kind of told me how she has felt through those years. She just lived every day to survive.
Yeah. Wow.
Every day, she didn't feel like she had a partner. In my life, my health challenges became an obsession to try to get better. Because I knew deep within, like, I can't be my best self if I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And dealing with pain, it's not like I was like putting my health first on purpose, but I just couldn't show up in the way that even if I had the tools, like I couldn't show up for her in the way that I needed to, feeling the way I felt, so I think that I found that as a crutch as well, which is bad. In hindsight 2020, throw all that garbage out the window, forget about the pain I'm in, and just love her for who she is, love her for the challenges she's going through, support her, put her first. And that other stuff that I was dealing with would have gotten better to a point, because the amount of stress, the amount of suffering on the inside that we were both dealing with, and pain, emotional pain, was a recipe for resentment, building resentment from both of our parts, and that breeds judgment, and that breeds toxicity.
100%.
So she just felt unseen, unheard, and unloved, and then when I started trying to figure this stuff out on my own for what I was dealing with, then that just looked like another thing that I was putting before her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So she's less important. Yeah. I mean, I can relate to a lot of this. I'm sure the guys listening to it could too, to us. The way I always think about it for me, Jason, I'm listening to you, is, on our wedding day, we have this woman looking at us in the eyes, right? And just saying, okay, putting all of her faith and trust in who we are and the man that we're going to become, only to find themselves third, fourth, fifth fiddle, so to speak, in the background. She said, I'm just trying to survive every day. And here we are in one of the wealthiest places in the world with the person that we love just trying to survive. Yeah. And you think about that despair going through there. And I share that not to make you feel bad, but also, at least for me, and we talked about this off air, a lot of the guys listening to this right now, because they get on a phone call with one of our advisors just to see if the program's a good fit. And 9 times out of 10, what are they saying? If my wife would just change.
Oh my gosh, dude, 100%.
Yeah, I was the same way. Well, if she would just change, this would be great. Doesn't she realize how amazing I am? How lucky she is to be with me? The girl at the gym seems to like me. The barista seems to like me. What's her problem? But I'm sure I'm the only one that went through that.
You're the only one.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? When you talk about that resentment. So here we have these two parties, right? So you have Shannon, your wife, feeling isolated, alone, trying to survive, right? Now she's trying to take care of these two kids and herself, not feeling like she's got a partner to back her up. And then my guess is your story is, well, why isn't she doing all these things for me? I'm out busting my butt trying to build this business for us. Look at this house we're building. You know, she's got a latte or what? It's like the smallest things, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, like if she would only, you know, change and give me the love that and respect and admiration that I deserve, then we'd be happy.
You know what's amazing about what you just said is I'm just having flashbacks of just the way I used to be. And it was just that, you know, I've had a hard day. I want to go home and I want to vent, you know, like about all this stuff that's been so stressful today, you know, and that's the last thing she wants to hear.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
On the contrary, if and when, and I'm not good at this, I'm getting better at this. I'm not a pro, but if I can go home and decompress before I go home, switch from work mode to what we call CFO, you know, Chief Fun Officer.
Yes.
You know, try to be a fun dad and try to bring a sense of lightness and calmness to the home instead of heaviness and stress.
Yeah.
And go home and seek for her to tell me how her day was, even though if I had the worst day ever. And granted, like we're to a point where if I let her know that I'm having a really bad day, like she gives me grace. Like she's like, she'll be there for me.
Yeah.
And that's such a unique position to be in compared to where we've been in the past.
We'll touch on that in a second because I do want the guys to know where you guys are now, but that's partnership, right? And that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants them and their partner to be the power couple, right? It's you and me against the world, babe, right? That kind of attitude. And for some reason, for most marriages, you know, it ends up being just the opposite. They're strangers, right? You become strangers in your own house and you don't feel welcome in your own house. And it's not the place you want to be anymore. What was the moment for you that you said, all right, I got to do something about this? What was that light bulb moment? Do you recall?
I would say, you know, 2022, I kind of hit a point where I'd kind of had it, you know, I thought I was right.
Yeah.
Right. I thought that I was doing everything as well as I possibly could. We tried therapy multiple times. And honestly, I would say that it was, in hindsight, it was selfish, like what I was feeling and expressing, because it was all about me, but I wasn't getting my needs met. And she wasn't either. And I was like, what's the point? Like, let's just be done.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know what, I don't know what I searched for. I don't know how Facebook caught me. I think I've probably clicked 3 or 4 marketing ads on Facebook my whole life. I don't like to spend a lot of time on there. But the TPM ad started showing up over and over and over. And I finally, I clicked on it, you know, and then I actually fill out a form. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then I think I got a call the next day from Jake Peterson.
Great guy.
One of the most, I love that man.
Yeah, I do too.
He's amazing. And everything he was saying to me landed, but I would not admit it to myself. I wouldn't admit it to him. I kept saying no. I kept saying no. Like, I don't have the money for this. How can I dare justify this? Right. But it felt right.
Yeah.
It felt right. And I'm the kind of, the kind who wants to figure stuff out on my own. Right. And I've taken stabs at that. I've read the books. I've done, these different things. And what was missing was accountability.
Mm-hmm.
What was missing was some knowledge of some basic principles and applying them to my life, starting with me. It's about me, so I can be my best self. And so that can overflow into the other relationships.
Yeah. So here's a question that I think a lot of guys have. So you eventually said yes, right?
I did. I did. I got a money back guarantee.
So you eventually said yes. You go into the program. Now, a lot of guys are going, well, wait a minute, right? How can you affect your marriage? How can you affect your partner if you're the one just doing the work? Shouldn't she have to do the work? Did you start to notice changes early on?
And she knows this. I'm the type, when I do something, I really go all in.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you put a little bit of money behind it, you're
skin in the game.
You're investing in yourself at that point. So you want to get the most out of it. So, the TPM starts with the activation method, and learning that I've lived my whole life as a deactivated man.
Yeah.
Right. Like I care too much about what other people think. I'm a shy person. I worry about, what about rejection? All these things affect me, and they shouldn't, right? They shouldn't affect me to that level. And so, learning about the different territories, about self, health, relationships, wealth, business, and how they all correlate to your question, there was an immediate response. I'm talking days.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks. In fact, her birthday was only 2 weeks into the activation method, and I was already learning these basics that they just came so natural to me. They made so much sense. I'm an analytical person, and I love synergy. They were synergistic. And that birthday for her, I believe she would have to say herself, but it was probably the best birthday from me, where she felt seen, and connected on an emotional level a teeny bit. Yeah. But to her, I think it felt like a lot.
Sure.
Right. Because
she hadn't
had it. Right. In so long. That was a start of some greatness, like some great improvements.
Awesome. And then after the activation method, you continued on with the Brotherhood and did your alpha reset in the UK. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And with, it's a 3-day, relatively intense experience. People might say.
Yeah.
Who is the guy going in versus the guy that came out?
It's interesting because going in, like I had already grown so much over these, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That, there was still a piece missing. Mm-hmm. There was still like this inner confident masculine level of Jason that was missing. Yes, I was learning tools. Yes, I was applying them. Yes, I was being held accountable. Yes, I was being coached in a direction, in a way that I've never been coached before in my life. And I was being inspired by the other men that were in my group, and we all became brothers. We all confided in each other, on a daily basis. It wasn't just once a week. We were connecting almost daily through the the channel, through the program. And I've formed these incredible relationships to these men that I call them my best friends. And some of them I've never met in person, right?
Yeah.
But going to the reset, I was like a deer in headlights, man. Like there's still something missing, like I said. And coming out of it, I call it like those 3 to 4 days was the equivalent of probably 10 years of real therapy.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Yeah.
Complete strip down the old and rebuild, like, who are you really?
Yeah.
And what I learned there, this is my biggest takeaway that I learned from my reset, was I learned that I never truly loved myself. And I probably judged myself more than I nurtured myself too. And if I can't love myself, I can't authentically love others.
100%.
So that would be my biggest takeaway. That transformation for me was that, among other things.
I hear that from men all the time, saying it was probably one of the most transformational experiences of their lives, if not, or most important experience in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think, tell me if I'm wrong here, but most men don't realize they don't know their true selves. They just feel like something's missing, right? Yeah. There's just like a puzzle piece missing. The other analogy we hear all the time is being unplugged, like the Matrix kind of analogy. Like all of a sudden you can see things in a different way that you know, and you know how you hear something or you experience something that you have a knowing of it being true. Like you're just like, okay, that's what I think the alpha reset, like you look at yourself and go, there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Your true authentic self.
Yep. Comes out and comes forward.
And you can't get there without an extreme level of vulnerability.
100%.
And that is something that I've really tried to carry with me. And I am willing to be vulnerable in conversation with about anybody. Now, it's hard though, because a lot of people are out there to, like, people wear masks, right?
Yep.
And if you try to be vulnerable, try's the wrong word. Like, if you are vulnerable around those type of people, then they'll still use that against you, almost like you're a teenager. You know how boys, how you were with friends in high school and middle school and stuff. You know.
Hey guys, I just want to share something with you. I'm sure we can both agree that in order to fix something, you need to know what's broken. And not only need to know what's broken, but a step-by-step methodology on how you can fix it. That's the easiest way to do it, right? Otherwise, you're going to be toiling with things. That's why I created a free training, a training that not only shows you how you got to where you are, where your relationship is missing that love, respect, admiration, and even intimacy that it used to have, to how you get it back. How do you retain that where your wife's looking at you the same way she used to look at you when she said, I do? You know, I don't know about you, but for me, when my wife looks at me like I'm her man, that I feel like I can conquer the world. And I want that for you. Simply go over to thepowerfulman.com/scales. That's thepowerfulman.com/scales. And I have a free video training for you. You can just click play and see if this resonates for you. Now back to the podcast.
And so there's a level of who you are around, the five people you're around the most, you become a sum of, right?
Yep.
So I do believe pretty strongly that you want to surround yourself with good people, people that you can confide into. And then when you're around people that you can't confide in, then there's not always a place to open up if people don't want to engage with that on that deep level with vulnerability. And I'm to a point where, like, I love being vulnerable with people. You know, if they want if they want to have that kind of conversation.
Do you find, in my experience, people that try to, like you said, use it against you are people who are just scared, right?
Yeah.
They're so scared of their own shadow, so to speak. Not in a Jungian terms, but like they're afraid. So they lash out like a teenager would. I have to take him down because he's reflecting back to me the power that's inside of you, right? And also, it's hard now to have conversations that are surface level. Right? Once you experience the richness of what's possible in a conversation or getting to know somebody, and for me, I find when I have those, I have kids, right? So I talk about this a lot in the podcast. I'm going to a baseball game here in a little bit, and there'll be a bunch of dads in there, right? And those are the guys. I'm with that group of dads by consequence of my son's baseball game. And it's almost like breathing in oxygen when you find another guy, even a woman, but another guy who's strong enough to have we can tell fart jokes, talk about sports, but then also talk about real life stuff and be honest and open. And when you find that person, it's a sense of relief.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank goodness. I don't have to have that same BS conversation about the roundabout being built down the street or whatever else it might be. That's just surface level. So you've been you go through the Alpha Reset. You've been to some of the events, Argentina being the most notable one for me, at least. Yeah. The breathwork session, I remember that one with you.
That was incredible.
Yeah. That was great. And you're surrounded by 40 other men that are, businessmen, high achievers that are also here to save their families themselves and play at another level, right? That's the key. Or they're here to grow and play at a different game, life. In fast forward, so we talked about also how your life was, your wife feeling like she's surviving. What would she say today? Would she say, you know what, Doug, I'm still just surviving day to day. This is not what I signed up for. Or what do you think she'd say?
I don't want to speak for her, right? But she'd say that we are in a place where even a couple of years ago we never thought possible.
Yeah.
Right. Like I just, man, going home and pulling into the driveway and being like, and having the feeling like, I can't wait to get inside, versus pulling in the driveway and be like, I don't want to go inside, working late to avoid going home.
Yep.
Versus I want to get done with work so I can get home.
Yes.
It's that.
Yes. That's what all of us want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there before, describing like putting my hand, like as soon as I touched that doorknob for like kryptonite, like I just didn't want to turn that doorknob and walk through that door.
Yeah.
To fast forward, right? And now you're like looking forward to hanging out with that person.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was stepping into the marriage. Honestly, I didn't even think was possible, let alone the one I dreamed of.
Yeah.
And being in there and going forward. And you admit, you've made some amazing, you told me we were chatting outside in the porch. You made some total health turnarounds too, which your passion. So I want to talk about that, but you made a comment saying like a lot of guys think that all they have to do is get ripped and jacked and then their wife's going to want them. And what was your response? How did you continue that conversation?
That's a hell no.
Yeah. Women don't care.
Yeah. In fact, so when I started my fitness journey, it was like, okay, if I'm going to be in chronic pain, I want to be in good pain.
Yeah.
And that's when I got into peptides, and I got into, health optimization and biohacking and, all these things. And, I went from skinny fat in a matter of 2 years to under 5% body fat, and probably a 16 pack, if you count the obliques, everything. But so very lean and a very, very cut, shredded, whatever, but when things are bad between us, it means nothing.
Yeah.
On the contrary, it's like, I think her comment, it's like, because the kids would go to me like, gosh, how do you have so many veins popping out everywhere? And she'd make a comment like, yeah, that's not even attractive. and
She wants your heart and your soul, right? Yeah.
And I was like, took that offensively, like,
Of course.
like every man wants to have veins popping out, and it's not that, man. And on the contrary, I think that women are attracted to men, and this is based on some research I've done, but like they're attracted to men who are physically fit and might have veins popping and stuff, not because the veins are popping, but because they see these men are investing in themselves.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you're living with her, like she doesn't care about that. Like she cares about how you show up.
Yes.
She cares about the energy that you put off.
Yeah.
She cares about, is she feeling seen and loved and heard, and is she feeling validated in the struggles that she's going through? Like that's going to be more attractive to her than anything physical.
Tell me about it. My wife tells me I'm hot every day, and I'm like, geez, do not go to the optometrist. No glasses for you.
Dude, you're a good looking guy, man.
No, I'm just, but my point is like for women, it's more the emotional energy we bring. If I bring good emotional energy, I'm there, I'm solid, I'm grounded, I'm on purpose. Right? My wife is going to find me sexy, whether I'm fat, whether I'm slim. Doesn't matter. Now, is it a bonus? Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But we as men are more the physically optic creatures, right? So we notice each other's physiques before women notice your physique.
Yeah.
Women notice your energy,
Yeah.
right? And how grounded is he? So women will talk about a man being safe. And when they're not talking about his physical ability to protect her, they're talking about his emotional, his grounded stability. And I didn't know that. It made no sense to me back in the day. And when a man like yourself can find his true core and his grounded state, that women find that to be the most sexy thing ever.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If I, because I'm not perfect. I'm like 10% perfect. Okay, so I suck, dude. I still really suck at a lot of this stuff. But I also know to recognize when I'm falling short.
Yeah.
And when I'm falling short, it's usually I'm falling out of routines. I'm not doing, some daily practices just to get my head on straight. I'm not decompressing before I go home to shift from work mode to family mode. They're basic things, but it's so easy to get caught in that cycle.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing lengthy projects at work, a lot of stress, things like that, then it's hard to show up for yourself.
Yeah.
To put in the time and a little bit of energy into yourself so you can show up to be your best self at home.
Yeah. So we've got, I'm going to speak to that for a second so the guys can understand what you're talking about. I think we have 7 or 8 coaches at TPM, all world class, in my opinion. I'm biased, but we wouldn't select anybody that's not.
Yeah.
And we know that there's something going on when there's 2 reasons that guys start to slip, right? Reason 1, things aren't going well and they get ashamed, right? So the shame hits them.
Yeah.
The second reason guys start to slip is things are going so well, they stop doing their routines, the things that they learned in the beginning, right? They're like, oh, it's great. We're having sex all the time. My wife's happy. Like everything's great. And then over time, it starts to eat away and they fall back into old routines. I mean, you've related to women and yourself for 40 years plus, and now you're learning these new tools and getting these great results. You've only got a few years of reps in there that you keep getting to get. It's like that wagon wheel, right? You get to keep the wagon wheel goes over the same train over and over again. The ruts get deeper. We want those ruts to be deep for you and for your wife, not the other way. And so it just takes those reps to get through. Something else I asked you on the porch, I think is we're talking about kind of how he did it, how Jason went from we'll call him Jason 1.0. I think you said that on the porch to Jason today. Do you think the man that's sitting here now would be recognizable to the guy 4 years ago?
No, I don't.
In good ways?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I would say in the past, it was, I lived based on what other people thought of me a little too much. A prime example would be, I love basketball.
Yeah.
So it's like you go to play, play a pickup game with all your buddies, and these guys, and everybody's pretty good and whatever. And Jason 1.0 is going to feel good after the game if he plays well. Jason 2.0 is going to feel good after the game if he lifted others up, if he was a good teammate.
Yeah.
Right. So I would relate that to marriage. Like Jason 2.0 is going to feel good when he can lift his wife up.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You were talking about your son in there. I don't go into any details or anything, but do you think he's benefiting from the work that you've done?
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, after my reset, I like kind of made this like promise to myself. None of my boys are going to grow up without doing an alpha reset. Right?
I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
And none of my girls are going to marry somebody that hasn't been through and that's just like, is that realistic? I don't know, but like that's really how deep rooted and impactful this has been for me. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to do what I've done.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you get married to somebody and you both have a good head on your shoulders and you've been raised in a way to where you've been emotionally connected to your family your whole life and to friends and to others, and your partner has been too, then chances are you're probably going to be able to figure stuff out.
They're not listening to this right now.
Yeah, they don't need to listen to this, right?
That's the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
That's such a small number of people.
Yeah, very small.
How many people have you met that naturally have the skills that you've learned?
I mean, I would say 1 in 10.
Yeah, maybe. For me, it's a lot less than that.
Yeah. And going back to the thing you said earlier, like being around other men, like it's easy to spot those people, those men that have done the work.
Yes.
You can feel it in their energy. They build you up. Mm-hmm. They're always seeking to help you. Like they're validating everybody, all the time, instead of using sarcasm and using humor and everything as a mask per se.
Sure. Yeah, I always think about it for guys listening, and for myself too. I mean, I live in a small town now that we've relocated to, but it's how many times you have an opportunity to surround yourself by, say, 10 men that are playing a bigger game. They can joke, you can laugh, you can play pickup basketball, but you could be honest and real about things that are going with your kids, things that are going with your business, your wife. Most guys don't talk about that stuff, period, unless for some guys you have that friend that gets too drunk and then starts telling you that his wife had an affair or what have you.
Yeah.
But they don't come to their buddies and say, hey, man, I'm struggling. Now imagine surrounding yourself with 5, 10 guys or 100 guys and that are competitive as heck. Mm-hmm. Like the guys in TPM are competitive men, but the competition is how can we lift up everybody?
Yeah.
We have that award called the Brother's Brother that we give out. And it's where all the men vote internally, right, on which men exemplifies what we do, lifts others up. And it's a competitive award. Guys want to win it, right? Yeah. We're men. But you vote for the man not just because he's popular, not just because he's the wealthiest. You vote for him because he's walked the walk and he's raising the tide for everybody alongside of him along the journey. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin. Yeah. I love that man.
So do I.
Might listen to this. I don't know. I confided in him a lot when I was going through some challenges in the last couple of years. And yeah, he's one of those that he's always looking to lift other men up. And in life, like we're craving to be around those kind of men. Like we're craving to be able to open up.
Sure.
Because you want to be able to be free and be able to speak truth, your inner truth, and not just live outside in and speak outside in. But it's hard to find other men that you can actually have those kind of conversations with.
Yeah, I don't even think I knew I needed it until I got it, right? It was like one of those things like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was a possibility here.
Yeah.
In hindsight being 2020, I've been approached by other guys to be in groups like that, but I couldn't see it. I wasn't ready. In my early 20s or so, had a computer programmer guy started a group, and he's like, it's for like UFC guys who also like personal development. He was trying to get a group of guys together, and I just couldn't quite pick it. I'm like, well, I like all those things, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready back at that time in my life. And then when I did encounter it, I was like, ooh, this is different. These men have no skin in the game other than bettering me. They get a kick and a charge out of helping people. How cool is that? Yeah. And you said something to me, I hope you're okay with me saying it, but you're like, I just want to inspire people. Right. Yeah. And that's what life to me is all about. And that's why I'm in this position. I think this is my calling. This is what I'm here for, is to help others. And you're doing that, man. I mean, for the guys listening to this, they're going to relate to your story. I can relate to your story of where you've been and the trials and the tribulations, and blaming Erin, who is my wife, and finding out that she was suffering in silence, crying in the shower by herself because she didn't want me to see her cry. It just breaks my heart every time I think about it. Fast forward to today when it's, better and beyond. And now you have that too. And it's a beautiful thing. You get to pay it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that going through life, you can either coast or you can dive in. And part of diving in is living the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
And what you just said about Erin, it just brought a lot of pain to me because I know Shannon was similar, and I feel like I've owned my side of that street, on that, and I'm just happy that we're moving forward. And for us, that first year after I started TPM, things were pretty good, and then she started to realize like, oh, maybe I want to work on me now. And so she started not therapy. I think that at that point she had decided that therapy had failed her.
Yeah.
Multiple times. And so she started life coaching and working on her inner child as well, her past and traumas and stuff. And things were really good, and then things got worse.
Yeah.
As she was working on herself. And I didn't really realize it for about 6 months. And it got worse and worse, and we hit another dark spot.
Yeah.
And looking back, like, if I could have just given her more grace and more space, and if I could have just got rid of some expectations and understanding that, she is doing this for her self-development, knowing and having faith that everything will work out the way it's supposed to work out, whether that's together at the end or not together, then life would have been a little bit easier for me during that tough time. But that goes to tell you, like, even if you're all in and you're doing all the work, it doesn't mean things are going to be perfect.
No.
And on the contrary, a lot of people don't start working on themselves until they hit rock bottom. And same with their health, because, I'm really big with my health optimization and with myself. And now I love helping other people with that too. So I love surrounding myself with like the conversations I love are things I'm passionate about. And I can be passionate about health optimization, but I can be passionate about self-development. I can be passionate about being vulnerable. I can be passionate about deep conversations. But what I like, those things give me energy. Those things give me a drive to want to help myself and others. Whereas those surface level conversations you're talking about, it's like just energy depleting. And I just want to go home.
Yeah.
You know, like, why am I here?
Yeah. I mean, it really is. And I think going all in the way you have is hard. It takes a lot of work. It takes courage. You invested capital, you invested money. More importantly, you invested time, a lot of time and hope and energy directed somewhere. That's hard.
Yeah.
Coasting, I would say, is much harder. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't feel hard when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's much harder. You get to choose your hard. Which hard do you want? Do you want the hard that could potentially get you an award, right? You get a reward, I should say, and actually have a great outcome of living your potential? Or do you want the hard of just coasting and sedating yourself? You know, I'm going to watch Monday Night Football again, and Thursday football, and Saturday college, and Sunday, and you know, and there's nothing wrong with that when it's a choice. And I enjoy watching sports too, but I know so many guys who are more passionate about their football or basketball or baseball team than they are about their own family. But when you ask them what's the most important thing to you, they would say 100% of the time, my family. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, if you could just apply the amount of time and energy you spend on your fantasy football team into bettering yourself in relationships, the football team will still be there.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But the juice of life, the connection you're going to have with your kids, with your wife, when your child wants to come talk to dad and get advice from dad, right? All of us want to be that dad that when our kids are going through a hard time, that we're the light that they look towards, not somebody else. And so to me, that's worth the hard. I'll take that every day. I'll do that rep, or I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I don't care what it is.
You know, as men, we want to fix things. Like when your daughter comes to you, my 16-year-old daughter or my 11-year-old daughter, you know, if they come to me with a question or to talk to me, 3 out of 4 times they're coming, they just want to vent. Mm-hmm. They just want to release, and they want you to just listen and to validate them. And it's still hard not to go into like fix it mode. Like, oh, well, let's do this.
Yeah, we're guys.
Let's do this. Like, you know, but when you just listen and validate, it empowers them for them to take the next step, whether they figure it out on their own or they come back to you for specific advice.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Dad. Well, what can I do? What should I do to do that? You know, so it's a process.
Yes. And
you can't and it's just like your marriage. There's nothing you can do to change your wife. Nothing. She has to change herself if she wants to change. Yeah. You can lead to an extent. And the thing that I alluded to before, and that I allude to both in health and in self, is a lot of times people don't start working on themselves until they have hit that rock bottom, right? So whether you're at rock bottom or whether you are right there in the middle, do things to improve yourself. Like, figure out how you can show up better for your family. Yeah. You know, that would be my recommendation to anybody and everybody. You know, start now, you know, on every one of those territories. You know, do things to grow in every territory to improve.
100%. A testimony to you. I mean, your kids come to you because they trust you and they're safe for them. That's the energy work you've done and who you show up as. having thousands of men through the program. I can tell you not all the guys have that. And most guys would die for it, so that's a testimony to you and who you are and how you show up. And like I told you, guys listening to this, I looked at the stats. We had 4,500 men come to the Inquire page on our website, thepowerfulman.com, to find out more information. Of that number, very few guys actually get onto a phone call with one of our advisors. And over there, few take action. And I know you're one of them. It took you some prodding to get through, and that's okay. But you got to take action, right? That makes men like you 1% of a 1% who've flipped things around, have changed your destiny. You've changed the destiny of yourself. You've changed the destiny of your wife and your kids. Like, their whole story has been rewritten because you were willing to take action and do work, and you've done it. Like, you've gotten your hands dirty. It's not. You don't just sign up, give a credit card, and then everything gets fixed. You got to do the work, and you got to go through the mud. And it's like getting a gym membership. You don't just get a gym membership and all of a sudden become ripped or become buff or what have you. You got to go there and lift the weights, sweat it out, and do the work. And this is no different. We're not saying it's easy, but I am saying it's worth it.
The thing is a lot of guys will. This was me.
Yeah.
Okay, like, what can I do to figure this out on my own? Right?
Oh, yeah, I was the same way.
Okay, I'm going to read this book. You read the book. How do you apply it?
Yep.
Sure. So the thing I've loved about what TPM has done for me, it's given me structure.
Yep.
And like I said at the beginning, accountability.
Yeah.
Not just the incredible coaching that is 100x over what therapy is, and that's what I'm going to allude to something at the reset. That day never ends until the work is done.
Yep.
Like, there's a day when you dive really deep. There's a couple of days where you dive deep. It doesn't stop at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m.
No,
it stops when you have met that when that transformation happens.
Yes.
Whether that's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 11 p.m. That's a long day.
Yeah. I coached most of them.
Yes, you have. And so that's one thing that I'm just gonna kind of allude to is it's not time-based, it's outcome-based.
Yes.
And it's that's a transformation.
It is. It is. And it's the same thing with your journey with your relationships. It's outcome-based, not time-based, right? Some men are able to literally change everything over in a week, and some men it takes years. I had a guy who's done one-on-one. He did one-on-one for almost 4 years, and I got a message from him. And after that period of time, and quite honestly, he listens to this. He'll know who I'm talking about. And we're like brothers. He just couldn't get through his thick skull to do some of the stuff we told. And finally his marriage is where he wants it to be. But it's a testimony to him that he never gave up. He never gave up. He wanted to give up a lot, but we all do, right? Yeah. It's hard. And sometimes you think, hey, it'd be easier if I go with the other woman. It'd be easier if I did the other thing. And those are just BS stories we're telling ourselves. It's also not what we want. We're going to bring the same baggage into a different relationship, doing that.
Yeah, there's no quick fix.
There's none.
Yeah.
There's none. Man, thanks so much for all you do and all you're giving back. And now you'll have this component of the academy that you've put together to help men better optimize their health so they can have that on there. Because also the truth of it is if your health is deteriorating, it's hard to be in relationship with other people and be your best self. So I appreciate all you symbolize, all you stand for, being a lighthouse and a wolf yourself, wise, open, loving, and fierce, and all that you do for the movement. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
You got it, brother. Gentlemen, as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action, and you're hearing massive action right here. Jason, just like myself and probably you guys, right? We all have these ideas that we're going to fix ourselves. So don't go from one podcast to another. I call that basically educational masturbation, right? You're going from one thing to another. Man, I used to digest like 10 podcasts a day. It was ridiculous on walks, on drives. Don't do that. Take action. Get off the fence and do what it is now. You don't have to go through the activation method or anything with TPM. That's not what I'm trying to say. Do something though. Get off the fence and do something. If you think TPM might be a good fit, then get on a call with one of our advisors. It's free. There's no risk. It's a phone call. And all they're going to do is ask you about your situation, what's going on, and they'll let you know if they think this is a good fit for you. And a lot of times they just say, no, it's not the right place for you. Go check something else out. It's a phone call, guys. Just make that commitment to whatever you do and take that action. We'll see you next time on the TPM Show.